Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adedwa. The headlines. President Tinubu orders release of food from National Reserve as World Bank says 7 northern states risk severe crisis. Nigeria's organized labor issues 14-day notice of nationwide strike. And Togo government sets legislative regional elections for April 13. And details shortly. President Bola Tinubu has directed the immediate release of over 100,000 metric tons of assorted food items from the Strategic Reserve and the Rice Millers Association of Nigeria as a short-term response to the rising food shortage in the country. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, disclosed these to journalists at the State House after a meeting of the Special Presidential Committee on Emergency Food Intervention on Thursday. The minister said that the government has proposed to embark on import of whatever shortfalls may be experienced after the release of food commodities. He asked that the government will mete out appropriate measures on food orders, adding that emergencies require emergency measures to ensure food is available to Nigerians. The World Bank says 7 states across the northwest and northeast regions of Nigeria may suffer food crisis due to high levels of insecurity and armed conflicts that has reduced the standards of living across the region. The states are Borno, Adamawa, Kaduna, Katsina, Yobe, Sokoto, and Zamfara State. And this is coming amidst plan by the government to cultivate 323,000 hectares of farmland producing wheat, rice, maize, and cassava for the 2024 dry season farming. The price of food items in Nigeria has increased in geometric progression with the latest Consumer Price Index report from the National Bureau of Statistics putting food inflation at over 33%. Earlier, we're joined on the news by Chris Akwarando, a public affairs commentator.
It's not a bullet thing. It requires planning. It requires declaring state of emergency in food production or agricultural sector. Agriculture is not just the growing of food crops or cash crops. You should also be thinking about mechanization. You should also be thinking about land tenure system. You should also be thinking about research into seedlings and then the variety of crops that are insect resistant, drought resistant. You should be thinking about farming all year round. You should be thinking about incentives to farmers. You should be thinking about storage. You should be thinking about processing of these foods. It's not just a matter of growing tomatoes in Kano or Katsina and then piling them in vehicles to Lagos, and then 45 to 50% of them get rotten on the way. It's not about growing beans that are disturbed by weevils or rice that is not parboiled and sharpened and making it look aesthetically good to eat. And so farming takes a lot. During this Shagari era, he talked about Operation Feed the Nation. He talked about river basin development authorities and so on and so forth. Okay, there was a time in the 60s we had farm settlements, we had grazing areas. Think about the...
Let's now tell you that the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have issued a 14-day nationwide strike notice to the federal government. Now, the union said that the 16-point agreement that was reached on October 2nd, 2023, between them and the federal government has not been implemented. The national leadership of the TUC and NLC expressed sadness that the government appears indifferent to the widespread sufferings and adversity in the nation, despite their attempts to maintain industrial peace. NLC and TUC in a statement lamented that it is regrettable they are compelled to resort to such measures, but the persistent neglect of the welfare of citizens and Nigerian workers and the massive hardship leave them with no choice. Earlier, we're joined on the news by Peter Esele, former TUC president.
Most times, when Nigerians hear of ultimatum or a planned strike, our first take is that, oh, there's going to be a strike. When you issue an ultimatum, it's an invitation. Let's have a discussion. Let's do a review of our last meeting. And let's see what has been done, what hasn't been done. And if nothing is being done, then in 14 days, we can go on strike. So issuing 14 days ultimatum starting from tomorrow is also a way of the organized labor reaching out to the federal government and say, let's come back to the table and do a review. And now none of those agreements that were reached have been implemented. The 35,000 naira wage increase by the federal government has not been implemented. So that's also part of what organized labor is all about. And then we also don't have a new national minimum wage, and negotiation to that has also not kicked off. So there's a lot of things that labor is worried about, and then standard of living continues to go down.
A former governor of Lagos State and two-term minister, Babatunde Raji Fashola, has presented a book titled Nigerian Public Discourse, which seeks to address certain issues in the country. The presentation saw a gathering of captains of industry gathered to felicitate with the author, while also digging deep into current national issues and seeking solutions. News Centre's Bernard Akede was at the presentation and now reports.
Is the output of my public service experience.
A two-term governor of Lagos State, minister heading different ministries, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and a seasoned politician, amongst many other hats that he wears, including now an author. Babatunde Raji Fashola has put together a book seeking to spark serious conversations in and out of the country, as well as seek solutions to national issues.
I think it's a book worth reading. I think it's a book that encourages us to think and to use information, knowledge, rather than just talking from hearsay.
A lot of what the book talks about, those conversations, those, the idea of empirical evidence, hyperbole, all that stuff, it plays out on social media, on digital media. So digital media is the battlefield, it's the staging ground for these things. So I think that at the least, this book should stimulate those conversations on social media, because social media is where they tend to play out most actively these days.
The event brought together politicians in their numbers, traditional rulers, people from the academia, businessmen and women, amongst many other professionals. But it was the panel discussion during the book presentation that gave the guests a sneak peek into the kind of issues the book seeks to address.
What he's trying to do is evoke conversation about having high-level conversations, intelligent and empirical conversations about the matters that are affecting the whole nation. So going from INEC to restructuring to our constitution to the powers of the president. So taking our conversations that we're having in public discourse and making them more intelligent and more informed and relying on data.
Notable speakers also gave their opinion on what they believe the book could do. However, when the author took the stage, he gave a clearer reason as to why issues concerning governance should be documented in books like this one to aid better conversation and seek solutions.
The event is intended to provoke serious conversations about our much beloved country and hopefully then elicit more serious action. And I think the conversations have started. As I had hinted, a sequel may not be too far away, because the issues that provoke this adventure are many and they are unyielding. But I don't expect that there won't be disagreement, and we've started to see that. And long may the disagreement continue. It shows that perhaps we're all looking at different things.
The book, which brought back conversations about the use of data and social media in governance, saw the President's Chief of Staff call for the regulation of social media in Nigeria, a topic that has in recent times been keenly debated.
When I was Speaker, I attempted to do this. The Ninth Assembly attempted, but we were resisted very vigorously by civil society. I guess the chickens have come home to roost, and I believe we're all on the same page now that social media is a menace and it must be regulated.
With the reactions that this book by Babatunde Fashola has gathered already, some believe that there just might be more to come from this new author's desk. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. At this week's graduation ceremony for natural medicine practitioners, experts highlighted the urgent need to establish formal oversight and regulation of alternative practices to protect Nigeria's patients. Abdukazeez Ahmad, president of the Natural Medicine Practitioners College, and Dr. Qazeem Olawale, the provost, stated that official oversight and enforceable standards would help stop unqualified people from falsely claiming to practice natural medicine. The call comes as 7 specialized students receive their diplomas locally, while natural medicine lacks the formal recognition and barriers to entry when compared to Nigeria's conventional medical system. The practitioners urge lawmakers to pass the pivotal Traditional, Complementary and Alternative Medicine Council bill to begin a clampdown on treatments lacking adequate transparency on efficacy and safety. I'm joined live on the news by Dr. Chidi Okpaluba, the Orange Palm Coal Limited Product Development Consultant. It's a pleasure to have you join me.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right, just speak to me about the main challenges you face as a practicing trado medicine specialist in terms of regulation and also recognition in the industry.
I would not say I'm really a traditional medical practitioner per se, but I'm involved deeply in the development of the alternative medicine industry in Nigeria. The major challenge the traditional medical practice is facing in Nigeria is the lack of standardization, as has been done in other parts of the world. There are no standard metrics that you can use to measure the efficacy, the quantities of substances that could be given to people. So I think the government needs to, beyond the making of the bills or whatever, there needs to be a standardization, a conscious effort to standardize the practice so that people can know the volume of things to be given to people, the quantity, how it works and all that.
Now, when it comes to, traditional practice or alternative medicine, you talked about the need to standardize the industry. But then, what kind of education are these people lacking to ensure they know the right measures to dish out to patients and ensure, safety when it comes to treating patients?
I don't think there is a standardized curriculum for learning and becoming qualified as a traditional alternative medical practitioner in Nigeria. I'm not aware of that. If you look at countries like India or China, India has what they call Ayurvedic medicine, which they have a standardized process. People go to school to learn this course and then graduate and qualify as an Ayurvedic practitioner. In China, the same thing. As a matter of fact, as far back as 27th century BCE, long before the Christian era, one of the Chinese emperors actually ordered the compilation and standardization of the Chinese traditional medical practice, whereby today, if you go to the pharmacies, you have the conventional medicine on one side, you have the traditional medicine on the other side. So Nigeria needs to get that done and then develop a standardized curriculum where people can go to and then learn these things, qualify or take exams and become certified traditional medical practitioners.
Like in every other professions, we have quacks, we have the bad eggs. So what measures do you think people can take when it comes to spotting, identifying, or even when it comes to distinguishing the real ones in terms of alternative or traditional medicine practitioners from the quacks or the fakes?
I think we have the NAFDAC in Nigeria that regulates the practice, the production or sale of anything that could be consumed or used on the body of human beings. So any product you want to buy in the market that does not have a NAFDAC registration, I would discourage you from buying that. All practitioners should try and get their products registered with NAFDAC. At least going through that process could create some form of standardization and authentication of the product quality.
Well, I wonder if you have synergy, or do you collaborate with conventional medicine practitioners, to sort of integrate alternative or traditional medicine into the overall healthcare system in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think there should be a deliberate effort to collaborate, the two parts to collaborate and work together as they do in other countries. Currently, the former president of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Mazi Dr. Samuel Habunwa, was speaking in a conference concerned about one of our products, the Soursop tea. And he told people that, yes, he's a pharmacist, but he has seen this product has very great impact on cancer patients, and he recommends people to take it. So you do not totally throw away the alternative medical practice. They are natural, they are there, they exist. So what we should do is to find a way and bring a convergence and a kind of a collaboration between the conventional medicine and alternative medicine. I'll share an experience with you. Sometime last year, 3 people that are close to me, 3 of my friends, were diagnosed with, of cancer the same time, prostate cancer. 2 of them opted to go purely conventional. 1 of them accepted to make a combination of the conventional with some alternative therapies. Unfortunately, early this year, the 2 that went purely conventional died, while the one that accepted to make a combination, take some conventional treatment, but still did not throw away the alternative medicine, is totally free, cancer-free today.
But then what do you make of the proposed traditional, complementary, and also alternative medicine council bill, and perhaps its potential impact on the alternative or traditional medicine industry, like you have rightly, framed it?
Yeah, I think the bill could help, but Nigerians, we like bills and bills a lot. The bills could help, but it's not going to be the end of the story. There's going to be a consciousness and awakening of the national consciousness and awakening that will have so much wealth built in the natural herbs and leaves that are around us, which could be studied. The government should make a deliberate effort to study those herbs and leaves, and then create a standardization system whereby they could be measured and monitored, you understand? To now itemize them and say, okay, this one does this, this one does this, one does this, and even determine the therapeutic index of the dosage that could be used by people to achieve the optimal health benefits.
And that's the most we can take on this edition of the news. It's been enlightening speaking with you, Dr. Chidi Okpaluba. Thank you for your expertise on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.
And moving on to another story. According to the United Nations, over 200 million girls and women alive today have survived FGM, with more than 4.4 million girls at risk worldwide. A Nigerian gynecologist has underscored the critical need for implementing laws to combat female genital mutilation, FGM, in Nigeria. Now, speaking in Abuja on the occasion of the International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, Dr. Nathaniel Adewale at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada, emphasized the necessity of legislative action to deter these harmful practices, highlighting the severe health risks associated with FGM, including severe infection, chronic pain, infertility, and even death. Dr. Adewale stressed the imperative of raising awareness at the grassroots level about the dangers and complications linked to FGM. Earlier, we're joined on the news by Dr. Olakunle Olawale, consultant obstetrician and gynecologist.
These are very, very deeply rooted, and to really abolish these cultural practices seems to be a little bit challenging. Though as a medical expert and as gynecologists, we are doing a lot through antenatal care, through gynecology, through healthcare services and information, trying to, reach out to the traditional birth attendant, reach out to the female child, try to go to secondary schools, trying our best to see how we can have legislations to, enact policies to help in mitigating against these barbaric acts. So working in synergy with traditional birth attendants, working with female groups, non-governmental organizations will go a long way with a strong legislative will to, stop these barbaric acts. Will go a long way in reducing the female genital mutilation as well as creating more awareness for it.
The High Command of the Nigerian military has called on all segments of society to support its troops and the front lines fighting to achieve the goals of liquidating terrorists and insurgents across the country in order to restore peace and security. Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, made a call during a bi-weekly press briefing on the ongoing military operations. He describes the current security challenges as self-inflicted and called for a collective effort to tackle the present challenges faced by Nigeria.
Beyond us, with our resilient spirit, to quench the fire of violence across our country. Patriotism is essential in this fight. I will also add that unity is key to our victory in overcoming the security challenges confronting us as a nation. Indeed, it must be said that militaries do not go to war. Rather, it is nations that go to war. Our nation is at war. And when you talk about war, war comes with complex and ugly.
As the world grapples with the hazardous effects of climate change, calls have been made for a general acceptance of the reality that the world is in urgent need of preservation. In this report, News Central's Bettina Onweli highlights the essence of the Sustainable Development Goal for clean energy. Her report.
Even though Africa contributes only about 4% of the global carbon emissions, the continent is not insulated from the impact of the climate crisis and may suffer the worst form of devastation from the climate challenge. We are currently producing a staggering 20% more emissions than the environment can safely absorb. It was for this reason that at the Paris Climate Conference in 2015, most countries in the world agreed to keep the global average temperature below 2 degrees Celsius and achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050.
masu kudi su suke amfani da injinin a gidansu. Talaka wanda ba ya da kuya nawa zai ci yaushe zai je sai inji ya yi ja gida ga shefanin mai ga shauran gyara yau duka an kawo da su gaba daya an dogara ga wutan ne kawai yanzu wutan ne shi na ake amfani da shi shi yasa mutane sun soma jin dadin wutan yanzu kowa da kowa yanzu yana bukatan wuta ne kai gare shi domin yana gida duk abin zai da wuta ba sai wahalan zuwa wani guri ba.
There are 600 million Africans without access to electricity, and Nigeria is the largest, has the highest rates of this unelectrified population across Africa. Nigeria is also the largest potential market for mini-grids, and so mini-grids are a key solution in electrifying at least 30% of the unelectrified population. So Nigeria has the potential, but it is being hampered by a range of constraints, including financial and policy constraints at the moment.
Nigeria currently accounts for the 4th largest emissions in Africa after South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria. Nigeria's carbon emissions come from electricity generation, mining, oil exploration played out in gas flaring, manufacturing, transport, and marginally from households. The use of generators as an alternative source of power has made the situation even more dire. Spike in the cost of cooking gas is also forcing citizens back to firewood and charcoal as a source of household energy.
The most of it is the hike in petrol, but I won't say generator is better than using the electricity rather, because most times when you use generator, it doesn't give that power supply to the way electricity will supply to you.
It's the noise itself, and then the smoke that comes out. Yes, it's always choking.
I use generator, but I hate the noise. I don't like the noise at all, because when the noise starts, wow, you won't even enjoy the reason why you horn it. I don't like the noise. And the smell, the pollution. It has noise pollution and the bad smell that comes in. So I don't like it. I prefer staying in the dark than using the jet.
Finding a global solution to the rising threat to the climate propelled the focus on clean energy as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal for the month of February. At the center of every realistic transformation is the effective deployment of renewable energy sources. In Lagos, Nigeria, moves are being made to switch to electric commercial buses in a bid to cut down on fossil fuels.
There is a lack of infrastructure. So you cannot build, for example, Uber for waste, where there is no waste collection infrastructure. You cannot build or tell people to transition to electric vehicles where there are no charging stations or where there are not even reliable power to charge your vehicle. Whatever innovative electric vehicle there is a limit to the distance, the kilometer that you can go without being charged. And if we do not have infrastructures like charging stations, then that means that we can't have electric vehicles. Even when maybe entrepreneurs then innovate and install charging stations, if there is no reliable power, grid power, for example, it means that we then have to start even power charging stations with diesel, which again defeats the entire climate action purpose.
Electric cars require very little maintenance, and for people who are thinking electricity is not available, you can solve that problem by providing solar powered packs where the cars will be charged properly. You could also use IPPs to charge it, but this is really a perfect thing. It also helps drastically by reducing the amount of environmental pollutions that we have from ICE cars.
Seeking a remedy to the steady injury on the climate may demand a sincere appraisal of the sources of the threat and responsibilities assigned in direct proportion with damages caused. To address the challenge, Nigeria must immediately commit to urgent climate action that is backed by resolute ideas, political will, and citizen effort. There is also a need to invest in effective public transport system to reduce the number of cars on the road and, by implication, the number of emissions. Climate action has become a global emergency, and Nigeria cannot afford to be left behind.
I believe that with political will, Nigeria can meet those goals. And like we said earlier on, DCERA, which is decentralization, storage, efficiencies, recycling, repurposing, and artificial intelligence, is a solid concept for us to reach our goals when it comes to transition and renewable energy.
Nigeria must immediately work to harness, optimize, and integrate its renewable energy potential, as the abundance of hydro, sun, and wind provides incredible opportunities for energy transition and to meet its net zero target. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
The Togolese government has announced that legislative and regional elections will hold on April 13, 2024. President Faure Gnassingbe had vowed more than a year ago to hold polls within 12 months. The last legislative elections in 2018 were boycotted by the opposition, which denounced irregularities during the ballot, but hopes this time to challenge the ruling union for the Republic Party and has called for a registration drive. The electoral campaign will take place from March 28 to April 11. As with previous election, the Defense and Security Forces will vote 72 hours before to allow them provide security on voting day. You're watching News Central now. Coming up, Army Chief Al-Burhan attends cabinet meeting in Port Sudan. We have details after the break. Stay with us. South Africans have reacted after President Cyril Ramaphosa used a State of the Nation address to highlight steps taken to address the prolonged energy crisis that has vexed businesses and families alike. With his historically dominant African National Congress party struggling in the polls, he pledged thousands of new jobs ahead of knife-edge elections this year. Ramaphosa is facing an uphill battle to rally support behind a scandal-tainted ANC, which polls suggest risks losing its parliamentary majority for the first time. In power since the advent of democracy in 1994, the party of late anti-apartheid icon Nelson Mandela has been tainted by graft and mismanagement amid high unemployment and a slumbering economy.
Doing the people's sauna, where we are saying to the president that he needs to listen to what people have been saying, because they know the issues, but they are failing to implement what we are asking them to do in order to be there for the communities. Our communities are a pigsty, the unemployment rate is high.
There are rules that are governing the house. So what they did on the 9th of February is what they're getting now. It's back to the center, and we have tightened the rules. Whether they were here or not, the ISONA is going to proceed. Even if they were here, if they were misbehaving, we're going to throw them out again, so that you allow South Africans to listen to their president.
That he was unable to find one thing that he said he was going to do, that he has in fact done. We are still languishing in an energy crisis. We are still dealing with high levels of unemployment, poverty. In fact, we've regressed. When we look, he spoke very much at great length about dealing with corruption.
Politically motivated violence in KwaZulu-Natal is now posing a threat to the future of South Africa, as the latest assassination of a ward councillor has claimed the lives of 2 school children and injured another 2. The Nkatha Freedom Party in KwaZulu-Natal confirmed the death of Ondukele Doma, Ward 11 councillor in the northern region of Nongoma. 4 children were shot during the heat, with 2 aged 11 and 12 succumbing to the gunshot wounds, South African Police Service confirmed. SAP spokesperson Brigadier Athlenda Mather said the National Task Team for Political Killings has been deployed to Nongoma municipality to investigate Duma's death. In East Africa, where Sudan's Army Chief, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has attended a cabinet meeting in Port Sudan a day after agreeing to meet in United Nations broker talks. According to the UN, Sudan's warring sides agreed on Wednesday to meet for talks on enabling desperately needed aid delivery in their conflict-torn country. The UN also appealed for $4.1 billion to help civilians impacted by the brutal 10-month civil war in Sudan, warning the conflict had fueled epic suffering. Kenya's biggest referral hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital, has performed a laparoscopic kidney transplant, becoming the first public facility in the country to conduct the minimally invasive surgical transplant procedure. The transplant was performed on 36-year-old Dixon Njorege, who received a kidney from his cousin. The procedure uses small incisions to extract and transplant the kidney, aided by specialized tools such as computer-guided magnifying cameras. It is a departure from traditional open kidney transplant, which require large incisions on kidney recipients and donors. Dr. Charles and Dr. Paul Njogu, the lead surgeons, said that the laparoscopic kidney transplant offers multiple benefits, including less pain, less blood loss, faster recovery, lower cost, and better aesthetic outcomes. And still ahead on the news, Donald Trump wins crushing victory in Nevada caucus. We have details after the break. Stay with us. Donald Trump has now won the contest in 3 states, Nevada, Iowa, and New Hampshire, making him the presumptive Republican candidate in November's general elections. He also won a Republican caucus in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Incorporated Territory. Donald Trump's only serious challenger left in the race, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, had opted not to take part in the Nevada caucus and to appear in the state's primary vote instead. Briefly addressing the victory party in Las Vegas, Donald Trump said, "If we win this state, we easily win the election in November." That signifies Mr. Trump will take all Nevada's 26 delegates, the system used by the parties to determine their presidential candidate. A hostage situation on a train in the west of Switzerland on Thursday night ended with a suspect killed in a police raid and the hostages safely freed. The hostage taker was armed with axe and a knife and was speaking Farsi and English, Vodkaton police spokesman Jean Christopher Sattel said at a press briefing. A total of 15 hostages were taken, 14 passengers and the conductor, with the ordeal dragging on for nearly 4 hours from around 6:35 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Police spokesman Jean Christopher said the motives of the perpetrator are not yet known. The hostage taker's identity, he adds, was still not officially confirmed and checks were still being carried out. The man was shot by a police officer after allegedly rushing him with an axe. The Honduran police captured an alleged drug trafficking kingpin on Thursday with a request for extradition from the United States 5 days before the start of the trial against former President Juan Orlando in New York. Director of the National Police, Juan Manuel Aguilar, reported at a press conference that Judge Luis Aguilar, who also called himself Luis Carlos Sandoval, was arrested in the city of San Pedro Sula. Aguilar, who also had an identity document as Guatemalan, was requested by the federal court in the state of Texas for links related to drug trafficking. The detainee must undergo a trials in Honduras, which can take a couple of months before being handed over to officials from the United States Anti-Drug Agency. And now to business stories. Egypt's urban consumer price inflation witnessed a decline to 29.8% in January, down from December's 33.7%, a report by the State Statistics Agency revealed, surpassing analysts' projections. Monthly prices increased by 1.6% in January compared to 1.4% in December, with food prices climbing by 1.4%, a drop from December's 2.1%. Now, yearly, food prices surged by 47.5%, down from 60.5% in December. Analysts with a median of 18 expected annual inflation to slow to 32.5%, as per a Reuters poll. Egypt's inflation has been on downward trend since reaching a peak of 38% in September. Now, core inflation, excluding fuel and volatile food items, decreased to 29% in January from December's 34.2%, according to the central bank, diverging from the analyst's median expectation of 31.9%. And now it's time for a business package. Take a look.
In business, The Nigerian federal government is seeking a substantial revenue increase from the oil sector in 2024, eyeing a significant 214% increase in petroleum profit tax (PPT) collections, totaling 9.96 trillion naira, according to the Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS). This ambitious goal reflects an 89% increase over the initial projection of 5.26 trillion naira for the same period. The Petroleum Industry Act (PIA) introduced significant fiscal reforms to address challenges posed by falling oil prices, transitioning from petroleum profit tax to hydrocarbon tax and companies' income tax. The PIA aims to enhance the adaptability and financial viability of Nigeria's oil and gas sector amidst global oil price fluctuations. And moving on, in Egypt now, traditional engagement gifts of gold jewelry known as chakba are being replaced by silver due to soaring gold prices and currency devaluation. Economic turmoil with inflation over 30% and a 50% devaluation against the dollar has led to a surge in silver demand. Gold prices have skyrocketed by over 120%, prompting a 58% rise in gold coins and bars demand from 2022 to 2023. With gold jewelry prices unaffordable, more Egyptians are turning to silver alternatives. Although economic uncertainty in Egypt had led many to seek refuge in foreign currency or property, high prices and market fluctuations continue to hinder widespread investment, and despite the price of silver doubling in a year, it remains significantly cheaper than gold. And in East Africa now, Kenya has signed several deals with Japanese companies, notably Toyota Tsusho Corporation, potentially attracting investments totaling nearly 99 billion Kenyan shillings, which is approximately $620.7 million in green energy and automobile assembly. President William Ruto announced the agreements on his official X account, highlighting the collaboration's significance. The agreements cover various projects, including the Meru Wind Farm Energy, Isiolo Solar Energy, and initial investment in Thika Kenya Vehicle Manufacturers, KVM. Ruto disclosed ongoing talks with Toyota regarding setting up a manufacturing plant in Kenya to meet rising demand and create job opportunities. The Meru Wind Farm aims for 400 megawatts capacity, while the Isiolo Solar Energy Project targets clean energy access for over 5,000 households. The revitalization of KVM, crucial for the automotive industry, was initiated during the G7 session of trade ministers. Toyota's involvement is seen as pivotal in rescuing KVM from financial challenges. Uganda results from Thursday's Treasury bond auction in Uganda revealed that the central bank secured 1.3 trillion shillings, which is approximately $339 million, slightly below the 1.5 trillion shilling target. This marks a rare occurrence of a private placement bond auction, the first since June 2022. Unlike traditional open auctions where government bonds are sold monthly, Uganda's central bank initiated private placements in 2020, limiting participation to specific banks. The auction featured treasury bonds with maturities ranging from 3 to 20 years, attracting bids totaling 2.3 trillion shillings. These bonds are set to mature between 2026 and 2043. 8 banks, including local branches of international institutions like Standard Bank and Citibank, were invited to participate in the auction. Finally, Zimbabwe's Central Bank and Finance Ministry are collaborating on strategies to stabilize the local currency, according to the Central Bank governor. However, no details were provided on the scope of the strategy. The Zimbabwean dollar has fallen by approximately 40% since the beginning of the year, due to heightened demand for foreign currency from civil servants receiving December bonuses and reduced commodity prices impacting inflows. This depreciation has also fueled inflation. President Emmerson Mnangagwa recently mentioned plans for a structured currency without elaborating on its mechanisms. Meanwhile, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe Governor John Mangudia clarified that this statement aimed to provide market guidance on forthcoming monetary policies. These are the business news we're tracking at this hour. Thank you for watching. I am Perpetua Fasamipita. The news continues shortly. Bye for now.
And now time for sports stories. Super Eagles defender Zaido Sanusi trained separately from his teammates at the Police College Coca d'Abidjan on Thursday. Sanusi missed Nigeria's semi-final victory against the Bafana of South Africa on Wednesday because of injury. Meanwhile, all the players that started the game with South Africa were exempted from the recovery training session. The players, including Victor Osimhen, Ademola Lookman, Moses Simon and William Trust Ekong, stayed back at the team's Pullman Hotel. Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire will clash in the final of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations at the Alassane Ouattara Stadium in Abidjan on Sunday.
We have to stick to our game plan and remain focused, because even when we beat them before, we knew they were a good team, and we just have to keep to our game plan. We are there now, so we might as well take the cup. I've not said.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. President Tinubu orders release of food from National Reserve as World Bank says 7 northern states risk severe crisis. Nigeria's organized labor issues 14-day notice of nationwide strike. Togo government sets legislative regional elections for April 13. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.